We welcome in Pete Jensen of the NHL.com. I love to get this time and this breakdown, Pete. Let's have some fun with the NHL. How are we feeling this morning?
Feeling good coming off that weekend with the two Game 7 comebacks. I mean, it just seems like every time we talk, every other week, there's something major going on in hockey this year between Four Nations and the Ovechkin great chase. The stretch run was great. The playoffs have not had any major upsets, let's say, but I think that a lot of people were surprised that Dallas came back to beat Colorado in that game, considering they were playing the whole series without two of their best players, Jason Robertson and Miro Heiskanen. Good chance they get one or both of those guys back for the second round, and they meet the Winnipeg Jets guys that had a shocker of their own on home ice to come back, and the buzzer beater by Perfetti and then winning it in double overtime. That was an epic win for the Winnipeg Jets over the weekend too.
Hockey's been good, man. The toughest tournament, the toughest trophy to win is the Stanley Cup as you now enter into round number 2. Doubleheader last night, the Hurricanes and the Capitals, the Oilers and the Golden Knights. We'll focus here first. An overtime victory in game number 1 for the Hurricanes, 2-1 last night. Defensive struggle. How did this game play out? And was it any surprise, Pete, on the end of it, that it was the Hurricanes taking game number 1?
So going into this series, we knew that the goaltending was stingy on both ends of the ice. You know, whether you're talking about Washington making quick work of Montreal in surprising fashion in the first round. I thought Montreal could have maybe pulled the upset, but they just had amazing goaltending from Logan Thompson. And then on the other side, you always have that structured possession dominant style of the Carolina Hurricanes. But coming into the series, there was some injury concern surrounding Freddie Anderson. Game 1 went in the way of the Hurricanes in terms of the shots on goal, heavy advantage for them. That's not surprising at all. But for Carolina to finish the job and win that Game 1 on the road in an overtime fashion, just I think can show everybody that, hey, this is not going to be what the regular season was, which was a dominant performance by the Washington Capitals. The better possession team historically this year, this first game, is the Carolina Hurricanes. If they could finish on some of these chances with some of the young players in their lineup, like Stankoven scored another goal in Game 1. He's been a stud this postseason. Carolina could easily get to the conference final. I wouldn't be surprised by that based on Game 1.
Yeah, it was, and Frederick Anderson also in goal for them. And what is that? I mean, that was always the biggest question mark, right? With Carolina, what were we going to get at a goal with them? Because we know we're going to get a ton of shots and a ton of possessions. But what about the goaltending here moving forward with Carolina?
Well, I mean, I've always kind of been a Freddie Anderson apologist, I guess you could say. The guy has a 915 save percentage in 77 career NHL games. You look at how many goalies have done that in NHL history, it's a short list. Like 15 or fewer goalies have done that. And the names on that list are ridiculous. It's like Brodeur, Patrick Waugh, Dominik Hasek. I mean, the guy's never won the cup before, but I personally think he's a good enough goalie to get it done one of these years if he could get a helping hand from some of his teammates. And I think that Carolina system, you know, just is conducive to him. If he stays healthy, he's a good enough goalie to get them over the top one of these years. He's had past struggles, of course, with the Hurricanes last year, kind of blew it in the series against the Rangers after they came back and, you know, gave up a couple of weak goals in that Game 6 when they lost. He's played a lot of playoff hockey for the Maple Leafs and the Anaheim Ducks through the years. One of these years, Freddie's going to get it done, I think. And I at least won't be surprised by it.
I'll tell you what's surprising right now is the best attack point for the Edmonton Oilers, just to let them get out to a really good couple-goal lead, and then you chase them down because the Edmonton Oilers are very comfortable when they're behind in the game. A 4-2 victory over the Golden Knights on the road, which saw the Oilers get down 2-0, and then 4 straight goals from the Edmonton Oilers to win game number 1. The road teams last night had some pretty good performances, Pete.
Yeah, and how about these live line Edmonton Oilers, you could call them? 5 comeback victories in their first 5. They won 4 straight to beat the LA Kings. They are wrecking some teams that are very structured in the Los Angeles Kings and now the Vegas Golden Knights. This series is far from over. Again, I think Vegas is the deeper, more structured possession team, but Edmonton's a good possession team too. The difference is they bring a lot of chaos in different situations. They're experienced in the postseason, and they're one of those teams, guys, that we look for every year. We try to pinpoint them. Which team is going to flip the switch? Sometimes it's, cap situation and stuff like that. But in this case, they got Evander Kane back in the first round. He brings some physicality, the shots on goal volume, a secondary scorer. They've gotten production from Connor Brown, who's been a stud this playoff. And, the past year or two, Connor Brown has done almost nothing for the Oilers. So all this combination, Jake Wallman healthy, Ekholm's still out for them. But injuries were the big concern coming in. But right now, they're peaking at the right time and showing us that maybe they were saving their best for last here after a pretty mediocre regular season.
Gotta love it here. And Aiden Hill, not a great night last night, but Edmonton dominated that entire game, Pete. I mean, they were the deserved winner. They didn't dominate against the Kings in those comebacks, but they absolutely dominated Vegas last night.
Yeah, it's a tough one for the Kings to swallow, for sure. The Kings outplayed them, made a couple of mistakes in the clutch, of course. That one by Byfield, we remember. That will haunt a really good young player. He'll overcome that in the future. But yeah, I think some organizational changes have been made in LA already, and they'll try to go back to the drawing board. But that's tough, man. 4 straight years losing to the Oilers in the first round, and this one felt closer than ever compared to the other 3. But yeah, I think that no matter how good the goalie is, Kemper was great in the regular season, Vezina finalist. Edmonton came back on them. Edmonton has some sneaky depth. Even a guy like Corey Perry that's been through the rigors all through the years with so many different teams and deep playoff runs. Corey Perry's playing a lot of top-line minutes this year and has been productive. Maybe look at him in the props market moving forward for the rest of the postseason.
Double header tonight, which we'll talk about again. The Jets and the Stars open up their series. The Maple Leafs and the Panthers. Much more talk with Pete Jensen of NHL.com on the way next on the early line. Let's re-rack the Stanley Cup Playoff Round 2 odds here, and particularly with the FanDuel Sportsbook. The Hurricanes with a 1-0 series lead against the Capitals, a -420 price. If you like the dog price here, it's a +320. The Maple Leafs, a -113 price, going up against the Panthers, who are at a -106. The Oilers, we just talked about, won game number 1 against the Golden Knights, now commanding series lead at a -225 favorite and a +184. And then the Stars and the Jets, which will get underway tonight. The Stars are the favorite at -182. The Jets dog price at a +150. Anything picked out here, Pete, from those odds here for these series that might come to our attention?
I mean, I think that the Jets are definitely being underestimated, but I think it's a mismatch in Dallas's favor. The only thing that maybe could slow down the Stars over time is injuries. But like I said, they played all of last round without Robertson and Heiskanen, and they could get one or both of them back. So maybe if the series is showing the wear and tear that the Stars went through in their epic series win against the Avalanche, you could jump on the Jets at that time, especially if they, say, drop game 1. But they also have home ice in the series. When the Jets are at home, Connor Hellebuyck has been great. When the Jets are on the road, he's been terrible this postseason. So he'll need to be better. I still believe that Dallas will steal 1 in Winnipeg, and I think that they'll have to do the same down in Big D. So Hellebuck's going to have to be much better in order for them to do that. So that's what I'm kind of looking at. So far this postseason, Ottinger has been much better than Connor Hellebuyck, which is a little bit surprising, I think.
Yeah.
These totals are interesting too here. Let's look at game 2 at Florida and Toronto. That's the early game tonight, 7:00, Pete. 5.5 here. We got an over in the first one. And really, it was Florida lost the first period, then won the second and third. They just started a little bit late, but it feels like some of these totals, are we going to get more like what we saw last night in the 2-1 overtime, or are we still going to get a ton of goals moving forward in some of these series?
I think as that series, Toronto and Florida, gets later in the game, you'll see maybe some lower games and some tighter checking hockey and high pressure, especially on the Maple Leafs side. But what a nice performance by Toronto. Even with their goalie Stolarz getting banged up, they went 0-4 on the power play, which is their bread and butter, and they still scored 5 goals to beat the defending champs. So maybe that's a sign. And they got some defenseman contributions as well, which is something that I was worried about comparing them to Florida coming into the series. So, maybe this year is different for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have Stolars, they have Joseph Wall if they need to turn to him again in the postseason. Craig Berube's a past Stanley Cup winning coach from the St. Louis Blues in 2019. I liked that move in the offseason the second it happened. I wasn't sure if they would be able to lock it down defensively like they have, but they've shown the ability to win games in many different ways. I'm still picking Florida to win the series, but game one was a big statement that this series is going to go very deep, I think, probably 6 or 7, and Toronto's going to give the Panthers everything they could handle across the board.
Game number 2 tonight, Pete. You got Dallas and Winnipeg. Ottinger going up against Hellebuck, and you want to talk about escaping from the jaws of a loss. That's what Winnipeg did, scoring with 1 second left and then winning a game in double overtime. They'll line up against the Stars, a 5.5 total, and a slight favorite now for Dallas on the road as opposed to Winnipeg here.
Yeah, a lot of guys to keep an eye on in this series. There's certainly Mikko Rantanen, who has 11 points in his past 3 games, leading the entire first round, tied with Kyle Connor for the most points. But what he did against his former team was legendary, to say the least. And you see him already here, only behind McDavid pretty much in the Conn Smythe rankings, you would say, based on the odds. And he deserves to be there. I mean, he couldn't have scripted it any better for him after being traded twice earlier in the season. And he would benefit from Robertson coming back because they play on the same line with Roope Hintz. So, keep an eye on maybe a multi-point game to come. I think you can get pretty good odds on Rantanen to score a goal tonight to keep the momentum going. And then on Winnipeg's side, Neil Pionk, if Morrissey's banged up, he's going to continue to get involved in the offense. He had the highest total skating distance in a single game in that double overtime win for Winnipeg of any player in the postseason so far. I know it was a double overtime game, but he was filling in for one of the best defensemen in the league, Josh Morrissey, in that game. So major props to what he was able to do with Winnipeg playing that game, most of it with 5 defenders.
Should be a lot of fun to watch it play out at this point here. We do want to thank Pete for joining us this morning. The NHL awards market here, it actually has 2 Oilers up top. Connor McDavid at a 7-1 price here at the FanDuel Sportsbook, and Leon Draisaitl at an 11-1 price point to win that Conn Smythe. Pete, thanks for checking in with us, giving us the ice advice this morning on the early line.